So tonight's talk is on a poem from the Theragatha. The Theragatha is the preserved poems of awakened monks. There's 260 or 70 of them. I don't remember the exact number. And there's a similar book from the Khuddaka Nikaya called the Theragatha, which is the preserved poems of 74 awakened nuns. And this poem, as in everything out of the Sutta Pitaka, everything the Buddha taught was taught in the context of dependent origination and Four Noble Truths. So Sumangala, this is a very concise poem, and one of the reasons I like all these poems is that there's so much depth of Dhamma within them when you understand the overarching context of the Buddha's Dhamma. So Sumangala has developed a profound understanding of the nature of suffering and the conditions that suffering is dependent on for originating, meaning ignorance of Four Noble Truths. He has developed a profound understanding of Four Noble Truths, which the Buddha describes in relation to right view as having a penetrative and profound understanding of the nature of suffering, that you have recognized and abandoned the origination and the maintenance of suffering, meaning the craving and clinging, that you've actually recognized, and that's an important part because it relates to the jhana. You've actually recognized your own awakening. You've had that experience, and you've developed that experience through wholehearted engagement through the Eightfold Path. So Sumangala was a student of the Buddha's. He practiced the Dhamma wholeheartedly, and he developed awakening. And this is his, it's almost like his declaration of his own awakening. Sumangala says, freedom, freedom. I am completely free from three crooked things. And the reason I'll say what those are: sickles, shovels, and plows. What he's saying is that he's freed himself from the drudgery of maintaining a self-referential self. It's not just, he's not saying that physical labor is something that we need to be free from. It's the implication of what they mean. And the interesting part about this is there's two other poems from the Theragatha. One is from a nun named Metta, who refers to the same thing, three crooked things. And one of those crooked things is a crooked old husband that she's no longer dragging around with her. And next week's poem that I'll be giving on Wednesday and maybe Thursday is from Sumangala's mother. And she refers to the crusty old husband that she's no longer dragging around anymore.
Oh no, the crusty old husband.
Yeah, look, I need to go back to the beginning. Freedom, freedom. I am completely free from three crooked things: sickles, shovels, and plows. Even if they were right here. So he's saying that statement. Again, you have to understand it in the context, but he's saying that even though they might be right in front of him, the allure, the attraction of the entanglements of the world, he's no longer distracted by it, even if they were right here. And then he says, I would still be free of them, even if they were right here. And now affirming to himself, do jhana, Sumangala, always mindful, do jhana. That's the end of that brief poem. And so when you understand the overarching context of the Buddha's Dhamma, it's remarkable, isn't it? And how he comes back to the singular importance of using meditation, but not just meditating, using meditation the way the Buddha taught it, which is to do jhana. Jhana means to ever deepening levels of meditative absorption. And so when the Buddha would say, time to go meditate, he would say, go find the root of a tree or an empty hut, meaning go find a secluded place where you're disentangled from the world, a quiet place, and do jhana, meaning go do your meditation practice for the sole purpose of deepening concentration. He never said, go find the root of a tree, an empty hut, and then do a couple of 1,000 vows, or go find the root of a tree, an empty hut, and do some visualizations of himself or other deities. He never said, go find the root of a tree, an empty hut, and chant for a half an hour. Go find the root of a tree and do jhana. That was the Buddha's description of what to do during a meditation practice. And so this short and concise poem, Sumangala is making the declaration that from following the Buddha's instructions, I have freed myself from all worldly entanglements. And I think I'll leave it at that. It's nice to have a kind of a short class once in a while too, but it carries so much, excuse me. It carries so much significance and reaffirming the importance of the singular meditation method that the Buddha taught, remaining free of anything else that would distract us towards other things, even though it might feel good. We talked more about this past Tuesday, that one of the reasons why we get into meditation that takes our mind into non-physical realms, which a lot of the other talks on jhana get into that, why the Buddha recognized that they were just more distraction, is that the whole point of the Buddha's Dhamma is to unite the mind and the body. A well-concentrated mind is a mind that is united with its body. So when we're using meditation in a way that takes us out of our body, by trying to establish ourselves in infinite space or infinite consciousness or any of the other realms, or even to attempt to establish yourself in some type of inner Buddha nature realm, which when you look at it closely, it's simply an objectified view that's outside of your body, even though you're expecting it inside. You're creating an imaginary repository for a self. The mind is no longer out of your body. A simplified term for that is you have created within a meditation practice a way to remain mindless, is what it is. The Buddha recognized it. He tried all these different methods, and he realized that the most important thing that we can do is to find a way to unite the mind and the body through a concentration practice and no other. So, what do you think, Kevin?
It's interesting. And even there was another reading I was reading among the list today, in saying that even the jhanas are impermanent.
Yep.
Right? Jhanas are there and see them, but they're impermanent as well.
Yeah, and that's such an important understanding too. And again, reading how the Buddha teaches jhanas. Saturday's class will be Ananda teaching jhana. The impermanence is inherent in them, isn't it? You first develop the first jhana is basically being mindful of the breath and establishing the pleasure born of seclusion, being disentangled from the world. That's the first jhana, but we don't stay there, do we? We continue to deepen our concentration. We enter the second jhana, which is taking pleasure in a more well-concentrated mind, a deepening level of concentration, but still characterized by directed thought and evaluation, meaning there's still a thought process that's directing us towards what we're doing in our meditation. And in that second jhana, we're evaluating what that experience is. Usually it's how I feel, I like how I feel, or I don't like how I feel, or I don't like what I'm thinking, or I like what I'm thinking, but it's all that's part of evaluation. And as we continue our meditation practice, Shamatha-Vipassana meditation practice, the next level is the third jhana, but there's the impermanence between each level, isn't there? If there wasn't, one of the profound understandings, and Kodana got it when he heard the Buddha's first teaching, if there was such a thing as permanence, there'd be no animation to life, would there be? We would just be, it would be a static experience with nothing that progresses, and in this case, what's most important, progressing towards awakening, would there be? We would establish ourselves in something, and that would be it. So an understanding of impermanence as it relates to the jhanas is so important. That third jhana is simply the fading away or the stilling of directed thought and evaluation, and recognizing this pleasant abiding of meditation. Another way of saying that is a pleasant abiding in concentration. You can't have a pleasant abiding without concentration, or else the description would be a distracted mind. There's no pleasant abiding. Yeah. And the fourth jhana is simply a deeper level of that pleasant abiding that is well established. But even that fourth level is going to continue to deepen, isn't it? And so I'm glad you brought that up, because these are all impermanent states. The Buddha didn't teach them that they're states to aspire to or to attain.
Or to try to rest in constantly or something.
Yeah, well, this third jhana is great. I'm going to hold on to it.
Yeah.
Or even to use it as a form of evaluation, like I'm really getting somewhere with this meditation, aren't I great? It's simply there to recognize that our meditation practice is being developed properly the way it's taught, and it's bearing the benefits. We're recognizing deeper levels of concentration. That's why we do it. And you read some of the other suttas on jhana and the talks, and then the Buddha would get into these non-physical planes of existence and basically say these are just as temporary and as distracting as the first level of jhana. Get out of it. Come back to the sensation of breathing. Do jhana. Don't do infinite space. Don't do infinite consciousness. Don't do Buddha nature. Do jhana. Do concentration. I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you.
I also think, and I don't know if it's too much of a stretch, he talks about even farm implements and the crooked, and then there's, and I won't be able to quote it, but the one sutta where he talks about the ground and the seed and the water for the seed.
Yep.
Yeah.
I can't give it to you. I always do it on retreat.
Yeah, I've been on a retreat and I read it several times. But it's almost like those implements are also feeding that too, and you can let them be. You can just
yeah, that's right. That's an important connection to that. Is it the Baba Sutta? Maybe the Mula Sutta. And it all. I think I talked about this Tuesday too. The depth and breadth of the Buddha's teachings is astonishing. As he continued teaching, and situations would come up, or a direct question might be put to the Buddha, and so he got an understanding of how other people's difficulties were in developing this, in getting past their own ignorance, and eventually, but very quickly, he covered all the likely distractions that one would come across in their Dhamma practice and spoke to them directly. So as deep and as broad as his teachings are, the underlying teachings are incredibly simple. And as far as meditation, do jhana. And he gave us a very specific technique for doing that, Shamatha-Vipassana meditation. And even the four foundations that a meditation practice is grounded in, the four foundations of mindfulness, are very simple and easy to understand. It's because of our tendency to want to distract ourselves that we find it difficult to incorporate this. And that's really what, people that have been listening to me know my story. I practice in all the major modern schools. I started with TM, and I found all of their meditation techniques ultimately rooted in continued eye-making and continued distraction within me. And then there were some schools, and the school that I took vows in, the Tibetan schools, I didn't even practice meditation. But when it's seen clearly, it's a very simple practice. And it only seems difficult and complicated because our minds are complicated and prone to distraction. One of the things that's surprising to me to this day, I should be over the surprise, is the very powerful and subtle strategies that we'll create to continue to ignore our own ignorance. Another way of saying it is to continue eye-making. And what's most surprising is within something called Buddhist practice. And there's so much that is really just distraction. And it's just a convenient way to continue eye-making while thinking that we're actually doing something. And it took me a long time to realize that. And even once I realized it, to extricate myself from it and get back to the simple practice of doing jhana within the broader framework of the Eightfold Path.
That's the crux of it. It's just the way our human minds work, that it's just they constantly are seeking distraction or attracted distraction. It's just that you want that contact.
Yeah.
Feelings are good, so you want the feelings. So that, even the second step on the path is to give up desire and aversion, deluded thinking. And if you can know that, like, it sounds like, okay, that's something to do, but actually do it. And I think that's the hardest part for me. It's the hardest part, because you can do right speech and right action, right livelihood, and right effort even. But then to actually cross that line, that is, I think, where you become a Buddha.
What a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Because our thoughts and our self-reference and our self-identification is objectified, meaning it's two objects. But it's the feelings and thoughts that are underlying that self-identification, that clinging. And that's where it really gets very subtle and very difficult, because we're so attached to our feelings and our thoughts. And why? Because they're our thoughts. We thought them, so they're mine. And the same thing with a feeling. And how human beings go through their whole life describing themselves by what they think and how they feel. And we do that on a societal level. We continue to reinforce it by simple conversation. How you feeling? Instead of saying, don't worry about how you're feeling. That would sound insulting to most people if we said, you know what, I don't care how you're feeling. But honestly, and again, an awakened human being, the Buddha would never say, I don't care how you're feeling. But the point is, we place such importance on how I feel. And we describe ourselves to other people and to ourselves. Oh, I had a bad day. I had a good day. It's all caught up in I-making. And when you get back to doing jhana, rooted in the 4 foundations of mindfulness, what does the Buddha teach us? To become mindful of the breath in the body, notice that feelings arise and pass away, thoughts arise and pass away, and pay them no mind. Come back to the sensation of breathing. In that way, you're interrupting the inherent I-making, clinging to those things. But you're right, Kevin. It's so difficult to get to that point. We can understand even conceptually that that's what we should do. But to actually do it is something else. And that's what takes continued right effort. That's what takes the entire Eightfold Path.
During meditation, it seems like it's peaceful, and it's, in a way, you are disconnected from those feelings, and you're not creating. But then to come back into the life, then it just takes you again. You forget.
Yes. Yeah. Again, that's another reason. You're bringing up a lot of good subjects today, Kevin. That's one of the main reasons why we use meditation to deepen concentration, so that off our cushion, we can maintain that well-concentrated mind and not get sucked back into the entanglements of the world. And that simple act of being mindful of feelings and thoughts arising and passing away, and coming back to the sensation of the breath arising and passing away, that direct action, that directly interrupts the clinging to feelings and thoughts. And as we deepen through recognizing the deeper levels of jhana, we're now able to, let me go back just a little bit, by recognizing that our jhana practice, our meditation practice, is actually deepening our concentration by seeing it within ourselves. That establishes it within our own minds, and we can then take it off our cushions and bring it into our mundane moment by moment lives. And all of us that come to these classes, to a person that has spent some time developing this, has talked about that, being able to recognize the effects of a right meditation within the Eightfold Path in their life. Yeah. And that's the whole point of the Buddha teaching jhanas, but also the whole point of the Dhamma is to recognize that it's actually working. Because the more we can recognize it, the more we are encouraging ourselves and reaffirming in ourselves that this is actually having some benefit. Again, it's really the reason why the Buddha taught to recognize this. If it wasn't part of this process of recognizing and abandoning craving and clinging, the Buddha would have just said, all you got to do is go meditate if you do it for 6 minutes, you're going to be good. You'll awaken just like me. But he understood how powerful, I say it, how the powerful but subtle strategies we continually create to ignore our own ignorance. And so we need a well-concentrated mind to recognize that and literally pierce the veil of ignorance that we bring in front of our own eyes. Wow, what a good class, this little poem. Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
No. Yeah.
There's a few folks online. I don't know if you've tried to send me a chat text. If you'd like to, go ahead now before we end class. And again, I don't think that this YouTube live chat thing is working well because Jane left one last Tuesday, but I didn't get it. So, okay, well, for the folks online, thank you for joining. Thank you, Kevin, for joining tonight. We'll finish with Metta, as we always do. There was an announcement I had. I can't remember what it was. I'll think of it. So again, find your relaxed meditation posture and take a moment to become mindful of your in-breath and your out-breath. And these are the Buddha's words on Metta from the Karaniya Metta Sutta. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud or demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove. Wishing in gladness and in safety, may all beings be at ease. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short, or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another. Even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings. Radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will. Whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness, one should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding. By not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. Thank you all for a wonderful class tonight. Peace.
It's like that last part of the